Chapter 3: Board Evaluation. There's a difference between corporate governance and board evaluation. Corporate governance evaluation focuses on the entire corporate governance system of an organization. For example, ECTT CG Maturity Framework. The CG Maturity Framework is one example of a CG evaluation, as it encompasses a number of critical dimensions that encompass the governance of the organization as a whole. Board evaluation focuses on the organization and performance of the board of directors only. The board evaluation is focused on one element of CG, and that is the board itself. A plan for the formal evaluation of the board's governance practices should be an item on the board agenda. The results should be discussed and a plan to remedy defects put in place. Indicator 19 of the Corporate Governance Maturity Framework, CGMF, provides insight into board evaluation. Evaluations can be self-evaluations or externally assisted. Evaluations must be used for two specific reasons: assess performance and ensure that the director skill sets bolster corporate strategic objectives and guard against possible risks. An evaluation should lead to a governance improvement plan which is implemented under the board supervision. Evaluation of the board's and the company's governance practices are typically considered a first step to improving governance. A typical evaluation process is led by the chairman, but frequently outside experts provide assistance. An evaluation should have clear terms of reference so as to include the board, individual director performance, committees, the CEO and chairman in the process. The TOR should also state the reason why the evaluation is being undertaken. For example, identification of board weaknesses and providing an opportunity to take action and improve itself, or assessing the value of the board to the company and the efficiency of its internal functioning. Board evaluation is one component in ensuring board performance. The other activities that the board needs to be engaged in to achieve board performance are an appropriate board initiation or induction, Indicator 16, and board training, also covered under Indicator 16. Typical reasons for board evaluation: identifying board weaknesses and improving the board with an opportunity to take action to improve itself. Allowing the board to assess the value it creates for the company and efficiency of its internal functioning. Acting as an early warning system which will allow changes to be implemented before problems set in. Leading some directors to conclude that they are neither willing nor able to invest in the time and effort to add value to the board, and decide that the company's interests would be better served by a change in board personnel. Identifying and overcoming any differences among board members. The Trinidad and Tobago Corporate Governance Code 2013 also speaks to board evaluation. Principle 2 of the code references strengthening of the composition and performance of board and committees. It explains that there should be a balance of independence and diversity of skills, knowledge, experience, perspectives, and gender among directors so that the board works efficiently. Specifically, Recommendation 2.4 states that all directors should receive induction training upon joining the board and should regularly update and refresh their skills and knowledge. Whilst Recommendation 2.5 indicated that the board should undertake a rigorous, transparent, and formal annual evaluation of its own performance and that of its committees and of the individual directors. Board evaluations help boards to identify strengths and areas for improvement for the following dimensions: distribution of roles and responsibilities between the board and management, adequacy of the board's composition, profile and committee structure, Healthy boardroom dynamics that are based on trust and enable open and respectful challenge. The board's contribution to and role in overseeing the strategic direction. The board's effective oversight of risk and ensuring internal controls. The effective use of board committees. Oversight of management performance, compensation, and succession planning. Effectiveness in the conduct of meetings. Quality of information and reporting to the board. Effectiveness of board secretariat and support. General process considerations. Board evaluation should be an ongoing process owned by the chairman and supported by the Corporate Governance Committee, but it is not led by the CEO. It is good practice to have quick, also informal meeting evaluations at the end of board meetings or immediately following them. The formal evaluation should always be consistent with the written expectations of the board as summarized in the board charter. The formal evaluation should include a survey-type instrument as well as individual interviews and confidential conversations with individual board members. The evaluation of the board as a whole may also include perspectives by senior management. Individual board member evaluations should be led and conducted by the chairman using a commonly agreed to and transparent evaluation framework, which by default would be derived from the one used for the board as a whole. The steps for a typical board evaluation process includes the development of an evaluation instrument, presentation of the evaluation instrument to the board and seeking agreement, individual completion of the evaluation instrument by all directors, analysis of responses and data, conducting interviews with individual directors by the chairman, CG committee, or external consultant, presentation of findings to the chairman if a consultant or CG committee conducts interviews and analysis. If done by the chairman, findings should be presented to the board. Presentation of findings to the board. Boards may face some challenges when conducting evaluations. Typical challenges are listed and possible approaches to overcoming these challenges presented. Challenge. Some directors feel uncomfortable about being evaluated. Possible approach. Having a clear terms of reference derived from the charter helps. Also, assure and ensure that confidentiality is maintained. Challenge. There is insufficient trust on the board. Possible approach. Find out what generates the lack of trust and seek to address that. Dedicate time to building relationships. Challenge. There are no formal agreed targets. Possible approach. There needs to be targets and standards for both the board and the CEO. If you do not have those, make sure you implement them as soon as possible. Challenge. There never seems to be enough time for evaluation because of other urgent business. Possible approach. The chairman needs to plan the agenda for the board. Not reviewing performance will ensure that the board and therefore the company will underperform. Challenge. A dominant chairman or owner does not want open discussion or fears losing control. Possible approach. The board charter and the bylaws should specify what the powers of the chairman are. Building the skills of the chairman would also help to experience how a well-functioning board is focused and high-performing. Challenge. Chairman and board feel out of its depth to undertake this. Possible approach. Consider using a consultant. Challenge. Bad experience in the past with evaluations. Possible approach. Be sure to take those concerns seriously and address them. Telltale signs of successful board evaluations. Explicit written purpose, objectives, and framework that is agreed to explicitly by all board members. Confidentiality is always assured and ensured. The chairman is leading and remains accountable for the process. It is scheduled to be undertaken regularly and predictably. Agreed to and explicit performance indicators are used as the basis for the evaluation. The chairman provides the full board with a report. There is an agreed and explicit follow-through process on the findings and recommendations. There is evidence of implementation of the findings and recommendations. Evaluations are less stressful and more useful if there is an explicit agreement on performance expectations. Benchmarks can be used by boards to not only set realistic and strategic targets for the operational part of the organization, but they can use it for the board as well. Working with the Energy Chamber or organizations such as the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute can guide the board on performance metrics of organizations similar to their own. Key performance indicators when conducting board evaluations include overall corporate governance maturity score, the extent to which the board focuses on the future and long-term strategic thinking, the extent to which the board has created an executive bonus system that aligns pay with high sustainable performance of the organization, percentage of time the board is focused on decision-making that is within the agreed domain of the board, the extent to which the board has ensured that the CEO has put in place a system for corporate control rather than relying or expecting the board to assure itself only through direct assessment, the extent to which the board manages and ensures healthy stakeholder relations. There is no shortage on the internet of sample evaluations used by other boards. In all cases, these must be customized for your own organization to reflect the agreements about your governance style and decision-making process. Samples can be found at some of these sites. The following is also useful reading that addressed many questions related to board assessments.